Hello, Katie. Welcome to the Mentally a Badass podcast. I'm so happy to have you today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
This is going to be a fun conversation because I like how we're going to be going kind of like two topics, kind of two completely different things, and I want to compare the two. We're going to be talking about traditional mental health and then also spirituality. And I can relate to you literally on so many levels. So I'm excited to, get to know you and hear about your journey. Before we get into that and also all your wisdom, I like to first have my guests get to know you personally. So you are a licensed professional. I first want to ask, what made you want to have a career in psychology?
Yeah, initially it was just something I was interested in. I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. I knew I was interested in further education. I just kind of studied it, majored in it, and then ended up going further with it. Looking back, I didn't realize like how long of a process it actually is, and that probably worked in my favor, or I might not have wanted to do it. But yeah, I now know I'm highly sensitive and empathic, so I think people naturally felt pretty comfortable with me from an early age, would often open up and share a lot of things, didn't necessarily know what to do or how to help. And so it was always something I was drawn to and interested in. And I just kept following that and was really more in that traditional, like science model, traditional mental health system at first. And then when I was already established in that, then I kind of stumbled into my own spiritual awakening. So now I do bring both worlds together. I don't think they have to be completely separate, but I think traditionally they have been.
Yeah, I totally get that. I feel like because some people prefer being like, DSM on book, and then some people think more outside the box because then some people are skeptical about spirituality, which I feel like everybody like starts out like that. But there's like some people that are open minded and willing to open up to different ways of healing and such when it comes to, mental health challenges. When you were in high school, did you have like any psychology classes or anything like that?
I ended up doing one like extra credit university level psychology class in high school, like in grade 12, but that was it. It wasn't part of the standard curriculum choices.
When you were younger, did you have like a therapist and had like mental health treatment there?
No, I think I did get dragged to therapy maybe once or twice, like in
Dragged. I like
the
that.
years.
I
I
like the
did
choice
not
of
want to be
words.
there, did not open up. Like,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah. My first experience going to therapy, I was, I think, 15 years old. I literally went to my mom when I was like, I'm depressed. She's like, okay, let's go to therapy. And it was just so, and it's what I want to talk about your
Mhm.
experience in the mental health industry and then like mine as well. I don't know if this is like a dumb question or anything like that, but I thought I want to just throw it out there. Do you think that the mental health system between Canada and the US can be slightly different in any way? Or because I know like the laws are different, just it's two different countries. So
Yeah, I don't work in the US and I've never worked in the
yeah.
US, so I can't speak to it in depth, but I have therapist colleagues and connections on different therapist groups. And so there's stuff I hear. I think there's some pretty big differences in the insurance piece and the
Yeah.
access to, Canada, we have more of a universal healthcare piece. So there's still issues with mental health being funded and finding services, but it sounds like in some places in the US it might be a lot worse in terms of like free sliding scale accessible therapy that's highly trained being accessible for people. And from what I hear around, like the insurance policies seem to be quite different. Many, if people have extended health benefit plans here, it's almost like massage chiropractor. You can just go and use it. You don't need a diagnosis, where
Mhm.
it sounds like there's a lot more insurance issues or things to navigate in the US that Canada doesn't really deal with in the same way.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have a couple of friends that live in Canada and they told me, I mean, we all know it's universal healthcare, and they were saying to me it's like 300 a month. I don't know if that's like that was also like 5 years
It
ago,
really
I guess.
depends. Many employers have plans. Otherwise, you can pay privately. It's harder to pay privately. Our provincial healthcare system has therapy programs. Like
Yeah.
there's therapy programs in the hospitals. There's places. So there's stuff that's completely free for people to access.
Yeah.
We probably tend. I don't know if we have more support for nonprofit, but I don't from yeah, I can't speak to it fully, but I think I mean, I think it's easier in some ways here that people can just use their benefits the way they want to. They don't need to get like a diagnosis to use it. I have clients who use it where it's just like they want to do even better in their life, connect with their own intuition. Like it's not a mental health diagnosis of why they're coming in, and they can use their benefits for that too.
Yeah, true. I feel like in the US, like I hear that it's hard for people to get access to mental health services. I think I just got lucky. Oh, I don't want to say lucky, but when I used to work 9 to 5 with Disney, their benefits were pretty good, and their copay was like I think like $20 a visit, which is not bad at all.
Hmm.
And like the first 5 visits per problem, it's free. Like the company pays for it. And then
Yeah.
right now oh my goodness, I'm on the healthcare for the state and I'm self-employed,
Okay.
and I use Teledoc, and like that's 100% covered. So I think they're doing like little like things here and there to try to make it as affordable. And then there's like BetterHelp that also has controversy. So I that's kind of confusing on that end. Like I don't. It's like I did use BetterHelp, and I think it was like 250 a month,
Right.
but it just wasn't that great.
I don't know them specifically, but I like haven't heard great things in the kind of therapist community. And I think one of the issues I hear more for people in private practice is like getting actually paid or reimbursed from insurance for people who are working in the field can be really tough in the US, whereas Canada, it's like you don't have those same issues happening where people have worked for months on stuff that's approved and it's like, never mind, we're not paying you,
Oh,
or not paying
kidding.
people a living wage in the same way.
Yeah, I've actually heard from like therapists that like insurance could be like a pain in the butt. That would stress me out
Yeah,
to like not know if you're gonna get paid or not.
for
And
sure.
you said that doesn't happen in Canada. Like you feel
No,
pretty
it doesn't
secure.
happen to the same degree like that. Like it's not a part of the industry here where it sounds like it's a pretty normal part from what I hear.
Interesting. So I know that you said you had some bad experiences in like the mental health world industry. Like I want to hear some like one of your stories of what you experienced.
Yeah, I don't think it's not necessarily bad, but I think
Mhm.
that a lot of the before I went into private practice and being very niched in terms of more like depth therapy, kind of inner child healing, trauma therapy, really working with subconscious, unconscious, and that spirituality aspect of it. When you're looking at working in systems, whether it's like government health services, universities, more nonprofit programs. A lot of the psychology industry and what I was kind of taught in grad school and early in the field is it's a lot of focus on conscious mind, like what are your
Mhm.
rational thoughts? How do you feel when you believe those? Okay, you should like let's change those and think differently and like you should feel better. And there's there's a time and place for that kind of work. I just think there is so much more out there though. Like there's not
Yeah.
one thing that works for everybody all the time. And I didn't get a lot of training or barely any training in terms of graduate school and getting registered as a psychologist in the nervous system, in trauma processing, in like the subconscious and unconscious. But that work really shifted, like was really helpful in my own journey. And I see deeper transformation happen for clients when we can work with multiple levels of like the mind and the body. And the spirituality side too is when you talk about the DSM of like the diagnosis piece of things, for spiritual experiences, there's not many places to classify that
Yeah.
in kind of the traditional mental health model. So a lot of the people I work with who do have that spiritual connection will often either not talk about that part of their life with like doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, because they can be afraid that it's going to get mislabeled as like psychosis. And then I also see because I'm trained in both. I'm also trained in transpersonal psychology. I've gone through my own spiritual awakening. Like I have one foot in both worlds. Sometimes spiritual communities without the mental health training can go too far the other way where it's like all of this is just a spiritual awakening, you don't need to worry about it, where it's like sometimes this is actually really destabilizing for people. There could be a mental health crisis going on also.
Mhm.
Actually engaging in more spiritual practices or opening this up could actually, if it's really taking someone out of day-to-day reality or like bringing up a lot of their childhood trauma and they're not doing well, they're not functioning, like this isn't safe to keep exploring in this way.
Yeah. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I want to tell you like a quick, it's not like 30 seconds or something like super crazy, but I also don't want to go too far away from the spirituality because we're going to go talk more into that. Recently, I was thinking of strategies and out of the box thinking for promoting this podcast. And so I had a thought of putting myself on a billboard. So there's like this company where it's like super affordable. You know how like the billboards they're like digital and they go through different ones. So it's that. And so it's really not that expensive. It's like 20 cents per play and the play is like 8 seconds and you can put it like anywhere in the world. So I just you have like a budget and then you put like okay, I want on these boards at these certain times and then pretty much the whole I guess algorithm does it itself. So I did that and I purposely did it on a certain hour on one billboard just so I can go there and like take a photo with it. It was, by the way, super cool. Oh my god, I freaked out. And then I was talking to my psychiatrist like on our monthly, meetings, and she's like, "Oh, so what's new?" Like, and I told her, and I was like, "Wait, I hope she doesn't think I'm manic."
Right.
Like that I was like, "Crap," because I was just excited. I thought it was like
Hmm.
super cool and everything. But I'm like, I know I wasn't because one,
Hmm.
I do have a partner with that I do with Mentally a Badass, and she also keeps me on my toes just in case I make any decision that doesn't make any sense. And she was fully on board. So like that's one good about having her. It's
Yeah.
just if I don't see certain like things. So anyway, it was a really cool thing I did, and then she did kind of have a face on when I first told her, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she gonna like up my meds. Like I
Right.
was so scared. I was like, "Oh my gosh, she's gonna think I'm manic." Because I've actually had a psychiatrist in the past where, because I don't want to be on medication my whole life. Like that's not my plan. I want to like medication keeps me off the edge.
Hmm.
'Cause I do all of my like healing work. Like I'm huge on like energy and healing energy and like going deep into like also childhood trauma and just doing other things. I also do a lot of healing on this whole podcast. I talk to like experts all the time and I feel like it's like my therapy. But yes, as I was saying, so I don't want to be on like medication my whole life. But one time I did have a psychiatrist where I kind of wanted to go more towards like the plant medicine at one point. Like it was like 5 years ago or whatever. And I told him like that's what I wanted and he wouldn't let me.
Hmm.
He was like, no, you're not going off for medication. And I was like, but this is my request. Like I'm not gonna go cold turkey. That's super dangerous. This is why I'm
Right.
coming to you as your patient. And I'm like, I do not want to be on this anymore. Like I just too many side effects. And I just want to try this out, see if it works. And then he was like not letting me. And I
Right.
was like, isn't this illegal? Like I
Well, I
was like,
don't
this
know. I'm not a prescriber. I'm a psychologist. So here it's like
yeah, true.
it has to be a medical doctor or a psychiatrist. And I think it's fair because psychedelics wise, it's like, does someone have enough training and experience and expertise in that area? And
Oh, I
if they
wasn't doing
don't, they
psychedelics. I was doing cannabis. I wanted to do cannabis. Like I wasn't
okay.
going in
But any
that.
like plant medicine type
Okay.
piece, it's like it's usually kind of a separate training. I mean, there's a lot of movement here where there's been more legalization, but not every medical professional is going to know, like, actually be trained in that or know what's appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people will also go, like, spiritual communities may go off, like, not through the medical system to do it as
Yeah.
well, which, um, when you get into unregulated spaces, I don't think like the medical system has all the answers, but it's also like unregulated can be a bit more dangerous. So
Yeah.
many of people, like traditional healers, had a long lineage of initiation and training and how to work with, like, how to know who's appropriate for what. And so sometimes when it's like recreational or some random dude who like did ayahuasca sometimes, like now hosting a ceremony somewhere, like this could go really badly for some
Yeah.
people and it may actually like very much destabilize them. And
Yeah.
it's like if someone very trained and knows what they're doing recommends like don't do this, I'd
Yeah.
probably recommend people maybe get another opinion.
Yeah.
But if it's like don't do this, there's probably a reason for that. I mean, I think even if you don't get Gabor Mate's work, he talks pretty publicly about he had hosted a retreat somewhere in South America and took a bunch of people there, and then the shamans there like took him to go do something separately
Mhm.
to work with him, and he's like world class experts. But in these like spiritual realms, it's a whole other training
Mhm.
protocol that's tied to the culture.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, but also this guy has the one I'm referring to. I feel like he doesn't like listen to me. ever since the beginning, ever since I first met him, I literally just went there because it wasn't my first rodeo being on medication.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I like already knew what to expect, but obviously I need to go to a psychiatrist to
Mhm.
get it prescribed. And so I've been with him for like I don't even know how long, but and I just didn't really like feeling like he's not listening. It was more just like, oh, you want more meds? Like want to up it more? If I'm like saying, oh yeah, I've been like angry. Okay, let's up it more. And I kept getting, you know, I think that what he did wasn't good because I'm actually on lamotrigine again with the psychiatrist and I'm on 175, but the other one kept dosing me higher and higher to 300. And I think that was the cause of like all my side effects. Like, he kept upping me so fast. So I felt like he really didn't care what I had to say. And it was like, oh, you have a symptom? Oh, up it more. And I think that's just kind of how his thought process was. So that kind of, if you think about it from like my perspective, that kind of gives me a little distrust in him because I felt like he just didn't care, that he just all he cared about was just giving me more prescription and making his money or whatever. So I think me just having that distrust right there already like angered me when he did what he did. And with the cannabis thing, I wasn't planning on just like getting something from the street. It would be like a medical. They have like medical marijuana. Like I would have went to a doctor for there who
Yeah.
specialized in that. I don't think I ended up ever doing it. I think what happened was I got another, like basically it was like he was like not letting me, and it was actually pissing me off because I felt like I was like a prisoner for medicine, and I was just not happy because I'm just like I feel like I could understand if I had like an episode, like if I try to kill myself or if I hurt somebody, and like, but I wasn't that situation at all. Like I was
Yeah, I
fine.
think it's important to have a working relationship with whoever you're working
Right.
with to be like, okay, and different disciplines kind of take different approaches as well, but it's kind of there should be someone who's like they're the expertise in their area of study and expertise, but like is it a collaborative working relationship and
Right.
finding someone you trust to work with who's like who can hear you if like you're the expert on your experience and
Yeah.
and even if they say no, it's like can they explain why then or like can they say like
Exactly.
here's the reasoning or here's the research like go look into this more, but I'm not recommending it or I can't recommend it for these reasons.
Yeah, I think I would kept asking one. He just kept like not giving me an answer. I think that was pissing me off more. So what he was doing, he was pushing my buttons. And naturally, I'm a human being. I'm gonna get upset. And I was trying to keep my cool, like not like flip out, trying to have my emotional intelligence kick in. And he took me to a part where I couldn't anymore, and I like slammed shut my laptop. And then I called the office and I told him what happened. I said, "Hey, like I need someone new. I cannot like it was just a whole thing." And she was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. We'll get you someone tomorrow." And like luckily they were great. They got me someone new the next day. And I told her that story and she was like, "What the hell?" She's like that. She's like, "Yeah, he's not supposed to do that." And I was like, oh, "Okay, well," because and she was great. She was fantastic. And yeah, no, I can tell she actually cared when I was talking, like
Yeah.
was actually
Well,
listening
and
to
goodness
me.
of fit is really important in any therapy healing relationship. Like sometimes it's more of like this person really isn't for me.
Right.
Sometimes it's just a personality fit too. So I think like whether it's, I mean, psychiatrists sometimes can be harder because it's more about like can if it's great you have the option to find other people. I know here we have a shortage, so sometimes people are like, oh, I'm kind of dealing with this because there's nobody else. It's not the best, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Therapy, that's a really important piece is finding someone that you can find like develop trust with and have a good relationship over time, and it doesn't mean there's necessarily anything wrong with someone else's approach. They just may not be the right person for you or like the
Yeah.
right approach at the right time as well,
Yeah,
because there's so many
definitely.
different types of therapy or different ways to work too.
Yeah, true. And then just to end the story, as I was saying, 3 years later, I saw like on my portal because it was the same company, and there was like documents of like they have like notes of like the sessions and such, and I saw back to that particular specific session that I was talking to you about, and he put that I was having a manic episode on
Mm.
him, and that annoyed me more because I know for a fact that wasn't the case. It's like you push my button, of course I'm gonna get angry at you. But yeah, so that was that. So that was like one of my horrible experiences. I just thought I'd just bring that up and put it on here. But I do want to talk about the highly sensitive human being. So for people who may not know what I'm talking about, can you explain like what it means like for people who are like highly sensitive because some people can be mean to others and say like, "Oh, you're too sensitive, like stop." Like can you explain like some people are just more sensitive than others?
Yeah, so highly sensitive person is a term that it's actually from the research of Dr. Elaine Aron. So if you search like her name or the highly sensitive person, it'll come up pretty high in search results. She's really kind of the pioneer around it where she's done a lot of research. So it's not a diagnosis of like this is not a
Hmm.
mental health disorder in any way. It's more a nervous system wiring.
Hmm.
So she has a self-test online. She has one for children. It's strongly research validated. It's more of a self test to see like if I meet this criteria and I feel like it strongly fits for me, it probably is. It's a helpful lens to understand yourself if you are highly sensitive, and it seems to be it's almost like the brain processes sensory information more deeply than
Mm.
non-sensitive brains. So
Yeah.
about 15 to 20% of the population would be highly sensitive across cultures across the world. It seems to even be found across species. It seems to be kind of an evolutionary strategy of like hang back and wait and get more information before jumping in. So there's a number of different criteria. Like some of it can be do you pick up on subtleties? Like do you read between the lines for people and kind of know what they need? Do you know what to do to make a space more comfortable? Do you feel things more intensely or like are really moved by music, art, other experiences? And again, that like high sensitivity, it's like we'd feel the same emotions anyone else would feel in the situation. We would just may feel like higher highs and lower lows,
Hmm.
not as a mental health disorder in any way, but more in a depth of processing.
So that actually leads me to a question that I want to ask you is people they say that people who have borderline personality disorder has like the highs and the lows.
Hmm.
So how can you tell if it's borderline personality disorder or if you're just like a highly sensitive person?
Yeah, there'd be distinguishers on it. It's not the same thing. Like it's not a
Hmm.
personality disorder.
Right.
Yeah, it's not necessarily, and I'm not an expert in personality disorders or borderline personality disorder, but borderline personality disorder often comes with like kind of put it might be putting someone on a pedestal, like love you, hate you, depending on the mood. There can be self-harm that goes along with it. Like it's higher highs and lower lows, but that can be in an unstable or potentially unsafe for self way or more emotionally dysregulated.
Hmm.
I mean, there's argument in the field too around what if this is tied to trauma history as well. Highly sensitivity is it's not a mental health diagnosis in any way. It's not,
Hmm.
it's like we might feel things more, be more moved by something, but it doesn't mean it's like dysregulated necessarily. Like those are separate kind of dimensions.
Do you have like any knowledge on generational trauma or like, epigenetics and all
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I've done training in things. It is something I work with as well in terms of that spiritual or ancestral inner
Yeah,
child. I
cuz
mean, a lot of stuff that's our personal stuff and our childhood stuff actually traces back like
right.
nesting dolls of trauma through the generations.
Yeah, so I was the reason I'm asking that is because I feel like everything, happens for a reason. We're born a certain way. Everything is like, if you're thinking more on the scientific and the biological part of it. So I'm like wondering if our ancestors, like something super like traumatic happened that regulated our nervous system and then like I can get like passed down. Like this is just kind of more like philosophy.
It can. No, there's research that shows it can.
Oh,
Like they've done
really?
studies
Okay.
and like like epigenetic studies do show that trauma gets passed down through the generations. And that's
Hmm.
not that doesn't mean trauma that's happened. It's like trauma that's not processed gets passed down.
Right.
So people can have symptoms, like sometimes people's anxiety, and that's again what I found for like just most traditional mainstream psychology is here's your brain, you as an individual existing in isolation, and like what's going on with you versus okay, what if this is like early experience, younger, and what might you be carrying that some of these symptoms may not actually even be yours. They may not have
Right.
started with you. And so, like, Family Constellations is good in that. There's a good book called, like, The Genie in Your Genes. They've done studies with, like, rats, too, where they've
Yeah.
exposed the mother to smells and then shocks. And they find even, like, two generations down, like, those rat babies will be afraid of that smell, even though they've never been shocked. But that fear gets passed down genetically.
Yeah, I feel like I learned a little bit about this. I do have a bachelor's in psychology, so we did take classes and there was a lot of stuff about mices and such. And I feel like what you were saying, I kind of like triggered a memory. So maybe I like slightly learned about it. It was like a bit ago. So I'm like trying to remember what I like textbook wise, like what I've learned. I mean, I did pretty well in school. Like I did really well in college. I just didn't go a traditional route with psychology, like getting a master's. Like, let's talk about fears. Like basically fears that just come out of like nowhere. Like some people are just afraid of heights, or like for me, I'm for some reason I'm like afraid of elevators. Like that thing happened to me with an elevator, but every time I step into an elevator myself, like I have this anxiety where I'm about to go into a panic attack, but it doesn't like make any sense to me. And I kind of wonder, like, do you think that could stem from like ancestors, or I don't know?
It really depends. I mean, there's so many things that are symptoms that people can carry or experiences they can have, and the root of it may be it can be very like different roots for different people. Sometimes it's like maybe there's some pre-verbal memory we don't have. Maybe this is just an anxiety or fear around like closed spaces.
Yeah.
So there's not going to be one answer that's going to fit for everybody, but there are like evolutionary fears where we're not really like that afraid of electricity or cars, but we are afraid of snakes and heights. Whereas like things that were dangerous to our ancestors that may not be a really big source of danger today,
Hmm.
it's still like that genetic has still been passed down.
Yeah, yeah, that totally makes sense. So I want to get into talking about you. Let's start talking about your journey. Like I know you talked a little bit about, putting your foot in both areas, but what made you like decide to want to do it? Like what was that moment where you're like, okay, I'm interested, I want to be open-minded to start
Yeah,
looking into
so
spirituality?
I mean, I there's kind of a series of moments over a longer period of time, but the Coles Notes version of it is I first realized intuition is actually real and there's something to it. It's not just a placebo effect by the way most people do, which was like not listening to it and being like, I'm anxious for no reason. These thoughts aren't rational. Like not all these alarm signals in my body of like not trusting this person that I consciously overrode, and then later got information of like, oh no, like that whole don't trust this was actually very true and very
Mm,
like there was a lot going on that I didn't know. So then I realized I was like, hey, there's something to this. Like some part of me knew what was going on before I had all the rational pieces to put together. And like, even though it seemed kind of quote unquote crazy or like I was being paranoid, it was like I wasn't. It was actually happening.
mm,
And so that was kind of the first seed planting. And then I ended up now when was first early in the field of psychology, I ended up burning out, and then I was pretty disillusioned with like, is this all there is? It feels like there should be more than just these conscious mind approaches, just behavior strategies. And I ended up spending about a year in India and Nepal, and then I did a lot of meditation there. I had a lot of free space, so that's where my own spiritual awakening started happening, where I had more experiences with like being sensitive to energy, getting more intuitive information. And so that started to kind of change my belief system about the world. And
mm,
often for like, spiritual awakening, I'd say is more, it's not a cognitive exercise. It's not like a checklist of like, do I believe in a higher power or source? Like I wouldn't have called myself spiritual. I wasn't religious. I didn't really know. But when you have certain experiences, it's like there's something more because you've experienced it and you've lived it, and whether it's one or a series of them. And then when I came back to Canada, I was working in the mental health field and very much like in the spiritual closet, like not bringing that into that work, but exploring it more personally. And there was a number of years where I was really kind of struggling of like, do I actually like walk away from this career and go into more like energy healing or something else? Because I couldn't find a path forward of how to do both. And I didn't know if it was going to be possible. And there was one moment when I'd been wrestling with that question for a while where I was washing dishes in the apartment I lived in at that time. And I put the soap down and this like bubble just floated up at eye level. And then it just like traveled down the hallway and it ended up turning like 3, 4 different corners to go through the kitchen, down the hall, down the next hall, completely level the whole time, like
mm,
moving at the same pace. There was nothing going on that could have made it go that way. And then it turned again and it went into this spare room that I had set up as like a energy room, meditation room. It hovered over the table for a second and then it popped and it was like full body goosebumps. And I just knew, I was like, I will not get a more clear answer than that. Like, this is the path to go first. It still took years in terms of like trainings and supervisions and like how do I actually integrate both. But like I was like, this is a very clear answer to that question of like what path do I take here.
Yeah, that does sound like a spiritual awakening in my opinion,
Yeah.
for when you were doing the training, like how does that work? I've spoken to a lot of people on this podcast that does like spirituality, and that is a theme that we do talk about a lot with this podcast. But I never asked anybody about the training. Like, what is it? Like, I feel like I literally know nothing about it.
Well, there's so many trainings kind of out there, but if it's any like registered health professional, it's like we need evidence-based training. You can't
Right.
just be like, "Oh, I took this course online with this coach or this like I do Reiki." It's not evidence-based. So, for me, it was more like energy psychology and trauma-based healing, transpersonal. I did like a 2-year program in transpersonal psychology. I did family constellations training and energy psychology in combination with that, other energy psychology methods. So, like existing trainings and foundations, like
Mm.
internal parts work, things where it's like intuition can help guide this work, but there's already a solid theory basis and evidence around these modalities already.
Yeah, I had no idea. Everything you're telling me, I didn't even know there was actually stuff that was evidence based. Because I
Yeah.
feel like when people think of spirituality, they don't really think of like evidence or
Yeah.
like science or really anything in that way. So I think that's really fascinating and very intriguing. For your like friends and family, when you told them you were gonna do this, like what were their thoughts? Like what were their opinions?
Probably depend on who and where they were. And like, I mean, some people wouldn't get it at all.
Yeah, like how was your I guess I mean I don't know the people in your life of course, but like
Hmm.
I know there's some people who have like family members or just friends that are like, "Oh, you're crazy. What are you doing? Like stick to the traditional way." Like did you ever have that experience?
I don't know. I was pretty like I was pretty independent pretty young and kind of did my own thing pretty young, so I didn't have a lot of, if they had opinions, like they could have them. It wasn't going to stop me from doing what I was going to do.
That's good. That's good that you didn't have that experience. I feel like it could be rare, but then again, it's I don't know. Everyone has like their own experience and their own lens that they look through. I feel like if I did that, I would get a little bit of judgment in my
Right.
family because they're like, well, it depends on like, it's not everybody in my family. Like, some are definitely a lot more open, but some are more like, go to college and get a job, which is important. But
Hmm.
I feel like they wouldn't get it, this whole spirituality
Yeah.
thing, if they think it's like BS. So I want to talk about like some red flag because you want to talk because I mean you have a book that's about like toxic spirituality. So
Hmm.
what are like some red flags? Like how can people tell when something's like a scam versus something that's like actually like legit?
Yeah, I think, and I mean, just to back it up a little bit, the book is more about these are like lots of problematic areas that I see. It was meant more of a guidebook to be like, if people are wanting to explore this, they're not sure where to start, like, here's some questions and reflection points to help guide you. And here's where this can kind of go wrong in different areas. So, just
Yeah.
things you should be aware of, whether it's more of like when like kind of the toxic positivity culture where it's well meaning, but it's like, oh, just manifest and like just think happy thoughts. And
I hate that.
yeah, it's like that's
I
can be
hate
helpful for
toxic
some people
positivity.
sometimes, but it's not trauma informed, it's not nervous system informed. We're a human, we're a spiritual being having a human experience, so we
Right.
also need tools to work with our nervous system and like the human experience part too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that level. When it's terms of like who's safe to work with, I would really consider it a spectrum of, and on the extreme end, you can have predatory people. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can have almost like personality disorder or really high levels of emotional immaturity where they are not coming from a good place.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the majority of people, but those ones who are there can do a ton of harm. Spiritual gifts, like they may be very charismatic, they might be even very psychically gifted or spiritually seem very spiritually gifted, and people can mistake that of like more evolved or like, oh, they're a good person then because like they must be at this higher level of kind of enlightenment, where it's like, nah, these are separate dimensions, and being very intuitive does not mean this person's acting from integrity or is in your best interest. So I talk about like reflection questions to be like, is this person, are they trying to make make you make a decision from a place of fear, or like be the
Yeah.
source of your answers? Are they crossing any of your boundaries? Like, is it clear what those boundaries are and what the relationship container is? Like, if they're now pressuring you for money, crossing sexual boundaries, like
Ooh.
other pieces, it's like, this is very not okay.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the sexual boundary part. I definitely know like the whole money part.
Yeah.
I on Threads, this is actually completely recent. I don't know if you go on Threads, but there was like someone that was, I think, charging, oh my God, it was like so like ridiculous. Like I don't know if it was like 5,000 or 10,000. It was something like that. And it was like a retreat, which I get like you need to pay to like certain things to obviously fund it, but it was something completely, I don't even think I even had activities. Like, I don't remember exactly the details of what I read, but I do remember thinking that it wasn't like it was not ethical.
Yeah, I think it's like it's a hard point because again, in the spiritual world it can go two ways. Sometimes it's like people are charging huge amounts of money, or like it people think it should be free. And I don't, it's not about anybody's price point necessarily, but I think there's more, the questions is like, are they trying to fear you into buying? And like, if
Yeah.
you don't invest this, you're not, like, it's the only way for you, and you're not
Mm,
serious about it. Like someone who's more ethical, even whatever price point they're charging, like, you can charge what you charge or what you work for, and what that, there's different reasons people may do things.
mm,
But also it's like, if something, it's like, this is the cost of this, if someone comes in and that would put them in a really stressful financial position, like you should
mm,
refer them to other people who can help them, or recommend something else for them that doesn't like compromise their ability to pay their bills. Because it's like, it's not the only way, you're not the
right.
only teacher, the only source. Yes, sometimes the money is very much worth the investment. You may be called. I've invested like that much or more for training with people at
Hmm.
certain times and been guided to. There's times where it's been really worth it. There's been times where it's like, this is all talk and there's nothing behind the scenes, and I would not recommend this person. And then this person is engaging in all sorts of weird stuff. And I'm like, nope, cutting ties with you. Like, it would not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's like the unethical side, like the predatory, but also in kind of this spiritual healing world, sometimes it's just people who don't kind of necessarily, like, maybe they may not know enough to know what they don't know, or it may
Mm,
be more of like, are do they have a place where they're doing their shadow work, that they're doing their own healing work, so that their stuff is not interfering with the work they're doing, or like coming out in that same way that they can hold a clean space for someone. With more rise of coaching and kind of spirituality, there is pieces where people might have some training, but they may not have a very strong depth of training. And I think with social media, more information coming out, like, it's a really positive thing in many ways, but there can be a danger of people knowing a little bit and thinking they know a lot more than they do. And it
yeah.
is a very intensive training program for a reason, where I've seen stuff online where people were like card readers, and now they're talking about depression or trauma treatment, and they don't have anything listed of like what credentials they have or training they have to actually step into this space.
Right.
And I'm very concerned for that, for people who may be working with someone who's not trained, and for the person working in that area themselves. It's like, you might end up causing some harm to someone that you do not mean to cause, but you
Hmm.
didn't realize what you're getting into.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And when you were talking about that, I was thinking about one Instagram account that I think these people have like millions and millions of followers. And it was kind of like what you were saying, that I think they were selling a program. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know how they came across it, my Instagram reels. It kind of like, I felt kind of like a little sketched out because there wasn't really anything that was showing credentials in like, because usually when they're talking about like mental health disorders or things like that, usually if they're not like licensed, you have to say that don't take this as like therapy, like you need
Mhm.
to go see a licensed professional. Like that's always, and I always do that like too as well. If I'm like saying any advice, like they know like I'm not I
Yeah,
would
there should
never
be some kind of screening of like, this is who
right.
this can help, and this is who it's for, and this is who this is not for. Like, this is who this probably this may not be helpful for you, or this could be even harmful.
Yeah, and then when I think I asked, yeah, I think I asked on one of the posts, I was like, what are your credentials? Because you're claiming that you know this and you can help heal people from like this disorder, and it's like it's dangerous. And they're like, oh well, the girl said that she had the credentials, but also it kind of makes me think like, how do we really know? like, and I think I said that and she never answered me. I don't know.
Yeah.
She probably thought I was just like a troll, which I don't know. But I was like, I remember
No,
that. I was
but if
actually
you're like,
concerned.
you should be, if someone has the credentials, they should be listing them. And if those are fair questions to ask somebody, and if they can't answer that, for me, I'd be like, no, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the
Or like
main
what
reason,
training or what experience? Because again, there's like
right?
Western models and there's other cultural models that don't have that same education, but there's still like an intensive training process that's involved. So it's like, did you just get this online, or did you like decide you're doing this without anything? Like there should be some level of like, where did you learn to do this and who taught you?
And I think she was saying that she used to do it on the traditional side, but like she has the credentials. But the thing is, it's like I think the main reason why I asked is because I saw that she had a huge following,
Hmm.
so she had a huge influence, and so that's why I asked. And I'm like, okay, well, she could be right. She could have the credentials. Like she very well could be doing things ethically, for all I know. But that's why I don't know. I just felt like as just a
Yeah, and following doesn't mean credentials for sure. I've seen some
right.
well known. Again, I wouldn't say any names. People could
Yeah,
tell for themselves or not when they know what to look for. There's some people who just start, people ask them questions, they have huge followings, lots of people, they're answering things, and some of the answers I've heard, I'm like, this is actually not even true based on like what is in the scientific literature. Like when we get into like empaths and narcissists or other things, like I've heard people spout off stuff in front of like with their millions of followers, and it's like, this isn't even what the research says actually.
oh, that's
And
scary.
yeah.
That is so terrifying. I wonder if you because there's this one person, she talks about the nervous system. I have nothing but good things to say about her. She does say she's a psychologist. She has like a book, she has a whole membership thing. I could talk about your book a little bit, but I want to go like more into it. It's like what people like when they open the book, like what could they expect to like read about?
Yeah, it talks about like like what intuition is, spiritual awakenings. There's lots of references, so it is tied into like here's existing literature, other books, like the theories that I'm pulling from. I talk about those areas of kind of what to be aware of like when this is safe to be opening up, when these might be some flags for concern that you may want to consult with a professional before going like engaging in more spiritually based practices that might open up that intuition, and also kind of on that spectrum of anywhere from that like toxic positivity, that stuff that's not helpful, a little bit about trauma in the nervous system, and again like what to look out for in those red flags, and finding like people who are like safer and more ethical aligned supports.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be fully healed, but they have to be able to kind of know the limits of their areas of practice and be able to hold a safe container for you.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I think that's good that you did put that out there as a guide because that can definitely be beneficial for people who are looking to go more towards that route. But Katie, I'm gonna put all of your information in the show notes so people can check you out and your book and such. But I want to say thank you for coming on and educating me, educating my audience. I had a really good conversation.
Okay, thanks so much for having me.